We're starting it over. 3, 2, 1, go. And welcome back to the Constitutionals Podcast. I'm your host, Chad White. If you didn't know, this is the premier podcast for the website cpluscomedy.com. Maverick, what'd I just say? It's a website. Go there. If you're watching the video, you just saw the back of Maverick's head. He's not wearing a collar right now, and his penis did rub against my knee. Welcome back. 273 Constitutionals Podcast. I'm tired. I want to take a nap, but I have to record this so that I can put out 2 more episodes, 2 more interviews. I'll do 1. We'll see what happens. What's that interview going to be? Oh, the first one. I have to do the first one. The first one's two have been recorded. Actually, technically, I just recorded LinkedIn. No, excuse me, Late Night Lately, and I did say 4. I have 4 on the docket. 1's not coming out till January. So I'm thinking, I don't know the time period on all that. I was supposed to put out 2 this week, but what I'm thinking is I do 1. Who knows? 273. Let's get into it. Verizon has a new deal with Netflix and Apple, and they're open to more Netflix and Apple are open to more deals with other streaming rivals. So we're in this point in the streaming world, in the streaming time period, when we're learning that I have my quad set up and on my giant wide. It's not giant. My 30. I think it's like 32 inches, but it's a big screen. It's like here to here. So on that 32 ultra wide, my quad setup. So sometimes you'll see me direct my gaze towards the video because I need something to look at. That's not the article. That's not the sound waves. And that's also not my notes. Sometimes I'll look at the camera. I'll try to do my best to look at the camera. But now we're in this streaming place where I've mentioned before that it costs a lot of money to run a streaming platform, which is why you see places like Paramount Plus and Max offload a lot of their stuff and put it on Netflix, for instance, or Tubi. In the case of Max, that has recently signed another deal with Tubi where they're going to have more free streaming 24/7 channels, as well as, movies like Birds of Prey and Shazam and all that are going to be appearing on Tubi, and the Batman. And I believe it was Bob Bakish, it was some head at Paramount who said we're open to more deals. And now, and we're really seeing that, especially with something like Verizon, that is so accessible. With a deal with deals on Verizon, for instance, you can just say, okay, I want to pay my phone bill. And now, when you go to I think they call it Play Plus. I have Verizon for the iPad. This is a little background. I have Verizon for the iPad. Yes, my iPad is 4G LTE, not 5G because it is an iPad Pro from 2018. And I think it's important. Buy an iPad with 4G. You will need it at some point. Trust me, you will need it, especially if you are a single man living alone. And sometimes your phone breaks. Whatever. Just things happen. You will need it. Trust me. Spend that extra $200. It is worth it in the end. And then I have Google Fi on my phone, which runs off of T-Mobile's towers. And Verizon, you can buy their Play Plus packages, which is, let's see if I can pull this up. They offer you separate, different streaming subscriptions. Like you can get your different streaming subscriptions through there. Not just limited to Face ID, not just limited to. I have to go to Verizon Up. I don't know. Do I go to account? I think I'll go to account. $11 I owe. Take it out. Take it out already. But you go down you scroll down to your plan and you go to services and perks, and instead of just subscribing to Apple Arcade on the iPad or on the Mac or on your iPhone, you can subscribe to Apple Arcade through Verizon. They have their deals it's a lot like how if you subscribe to Spotify through your phone, which I don't think that iOS does that anymore, or Spotify does that on iOS anymore, then they'll take X amount of percentage. Google or iOS will take X amount of percentage out of whatever streamer you subscribe through them to. Same thing with Verizon. You can do Disney Plus, Discovery Plus, YouTube TV, and now Netflix and Apple. So Verizon backed Netflix and Max deal, and talks between Apple and Paramount suggest that streaming bundles may be getting bigger. And it costs a lot of money. It's a lot of money to run these things. In fact, I was just watching CNBC this morning, and Paramount Global has been suffering on with their numbers, and an analyst, not an analyst, I guess. What would you call those? The people, they're not analysts. The ones that that suggest things that companies should do. I forgot what they're called, but one guy was suggesting, that was being interviewed by Becky Quick, was suggesting that Paramount be sold. And who would buy Paramount? Something along the lines of, Disney buying 20th Century Fox from Fox Corp, or Discovery buying Warner Media. That gets into a whole conglomerate thing, but who has enough money to buy Paramount? Or could Paramount just sell the linear products, which include, Comedy Central, BET, and all that stuff, to somebody else, because linear is a dying medium? Or, Paramount is so small compared to Disney and to Warner and even Sony, could it just be all dissipated in the first place, and then whoever buys Paramount would eventually get rid of Paramount Plus? The thing is, I thought Paramount Plus was one of the more popular ones, especially when it was CBS All Access, because it was the only one that was, you can get your local broadcast channel on streaming, because Peacock didn't exist yet, and you couldn't do local streaming until this year, I don't think. And YouTube TV and Hulu Live TV weren't big. It was only Sling, whatever. Verizon announced a $10 per month deal that includes ad tiers of both Netflix and Max. That's a 40% discount compared to their standard prices. That would go up at some point, I would assume. So there's been discount pricing before on both of those, but now you can get them both together. I mean, if you're a fan of both of those and you don't care about ads, then that would be a great deal. And plus, you can tack it on to your Verizon plan. Like, let's say, you work for a company, and that company pays for your Verizon plan, and they'll pay for, a certain amount of money, and you're always on Wi-Fi or whatever. You have unlimited data. Who knows? Who cares? There's any variable of these. But Apple TV Plus has apparently held talks with Paramount Plus for their bundle. I mentioned that as well. And the bundle, is still up in the air, but Apple did recently raise prices. Paramount Plus has multiple tiers, including an ad tier. So what kind of money could be worked out? And again, these companies are open to now with the exception of Netflix, to putting their own products out on other places. On platforms. I can watch 30 Rock on Hulu. I can watch 30 Rock on Hulu on Disney Plus now. It all works, and it's unfortunate these conglomerates are still acting like this. But we're going to see more streaming partnerships come into fruition, and we will definitely see how things work. Speaking of that beta, that Disney Plus and Hulu beta, it is launched, and it more or less works. So if you have Disney Plus and if you have Hulu, you have to have both of them, and they're both associated with the same email address. Then now you can get Hulu and its own tile on Disney Plus. Not everything's there, and we knew this beta was coming, and I was very I don't want to say excited, but I was interested into seeing how they would implement it. And I mean, lo and behold, they implement it just like the National Geographic button or the Pixar button, the Star Wars one. It makes sense. They did it that way. Unfortunately, and again, it's in beta, so let's keep that in mind. It does make Disney Plus was already bare bones, and I go there truly just for The Simpsons. Like, I don't go there for anything else. In fact, on Thanksgiving morning, I went to my watch list and I said, I'm going to watch a movie while I work out. Because all I was doing was Peloton stuff at home since the gym was closed. And then I also had to go to work. But I worked out from 4:30 in the morning until 6:30, watching Alexander the Terrible, No Good, Very Horrible, Bad Day, or whatever the hell that movie was called, and that has been sitting on my watch list since Disney Plus became a thing. So that was like what, 4 years ago. I've only been watching The Simpsons, and then sometimes a Hercules show and Aladdin and things from my childhood. But mostly The Simpsons. And now with this new button, this new tile on Disney Plus, you get, I'm gonna say, I went through, and this is the most boring thing ever besides the show, but I went through, when that button launched, I went through every single thing on my Hulu watch list, TV shows and movies, and like, if there was 100 things, there's not 100 things, but if there are 100 things on there, 98 of them made it over. There are 2 British shows, including This Way Up, that, God bless it, I meant to turn this off, but there are 2 British shows that did not make the transition, and I'm guessing it's just a rights issue, licensing thing. But the tile makes sense. But that, the tile, click on the tile, you get all the Hulu stuff, but the Hulu stuff is not being shown in the Disney Plus recommendations or anything. And a lot of people are also complaining that the watch history didn't come over. Again, it's a beta. Who cares? I mean, I have every episode of. It's also very strange. The Simpsons. It's also very strange to see like Family Guy there, like Family Guy and American Dad, where there are just horrible, dark, depraved jokes, and they can be on my watch list next to the Little Mermaid show, which is not. I'm good. I've seen it. The Little Mermaid show, Hercules, and Aladdin, all they all hold up to me. But again, you have to subscribe to both. So if you have ads for Hulu and you don't have ads for Disney, you'll still get ads for Hulu stuff, or vice versa. I would love for them. I mean, again, I want this. I don't want it to be one service, because I don't want us to get to a super app, which is a thing that China uses. Like, China will use an app for, calling your car and ordering your groceries and going on the internet and all that stuff. And Americans aren't really privy. I know I've talked about super apps before, but Americans aren't privy to that, because it's just a lot of choice and people just don't want to do all of that stuff. But we saw what happened with Max when it was HBO Max, and there was, before they offloaded a lot of stuff, there was a lot of choice there, and in so, I, as much as I love the choice, and in some cases it felt bloated, and I feel like they dropped off too many things. Whereas you go to Disney Plus, and it's just kind of, I'm only watching The Simpsons. There needs to be a happy medium there, and I think keeping 2 separate apps, one kind of family friendly, child focused app, really, where you can watch Alexander and the whatever and Percy Jackson reboot and all that stuff. And also having Hulu as this kind of catch-all for Fox Broadcasting shows and some NBC Universal shows and Cartoon Network shows and everything that can be, and all the broadcasters can like put all their crap on there. I mean, that's how Hulu started, and that's how it should stay. Hulu's a great middle ground for all that stuff. And Disney Plus, like, watching The Bear on Disney Plus just doesn't, it's not that it doesn't feel right, because that's also part of it, but it also doesn't fit with this brand of what Disney is trying to say it has. Not that I'm saying that Disney can't do TVMA and R-rated things. I'm just saying keep that separate. Focus Features is an indie or a smaller footprint studio that I think Disney owns. So then, if we look into it, then yeah, sure, Disney owns Focus Features, and they put out an R-rated indie film or smaller film. But then they also that year, they'll put out the Good Dinosaur 2. God forbid. Good Dinosaur sucks. But keep Disney Plus and Hulu separate, because I think the bottom line is I don't want Hulu to be phased out. All right, this next one comes from the Wall Street Journal, written by Chip Cutter. Spotify's layoff memo and the art of delivering bad news. So Spotify ended up having to lay off more than 1,500 people. And it was once the one of the few tech unicorns actually making money. But what Mr. Cutter writes here is how there's an art to just trying to spin a positive on having to lay people off. And Spotify is not the only one that does this. Meta, Salesforce, Amazon, so many of these companies. CNN. Warner Media, Warner Bros. Discovery. There are lines like economic growth has slowed dramatically and capital has become more expensive. Spotify is not the exception to these realities. And what Cutter and the Wall Street Journal's, what they take from this is executives early in the memo usually address the macroeconomic climate. Amazon's Andy Jassy called the economy, quote, uncertain in a layoff memo in January. Salesforce CEO Mark Benioff described it as challenging that same month. Here, Daniel Ek, who's the CEO of Spotify, makes a nod to higher interest rates and slowing growth. They use words like right size. They use they're very vague about, for those leaving, we're a better company because of your dedication to hard work, things like that. And this is, online you'll see people say this is PR speak, blah, blah, blah. Let's not, put a very vanilla generalization over it. Let's say that this is how these companies are trying to spin this very horrible negative thing and make it seem like they're doing this for not just the betterment of the company, but for the betterment of you. God, this would be a great thing to talk about in LinkedIn logs. Hey, maybe I should move this over to LinkedIn logs. I think I'll do that. Doing it right now, baby. Okay. But Spotify, so all this is, Spotify is not immune. No matter how much you like a company, it's not immune to the trepidations, whatever, of what these other bigger companies that you don't necessarily agree with all of the stances on and everything. They're not immune to that. Everybody's going to do something that you don't like or that you don't agree with in the end. And they all use the same verbiage, the same language, the same passive things to make it seem like they truly care. And these big names, they don't. And they're always talking about being lean. Less work, less people, more work is basically what that says. Now, speaking of jobs, this might be another good thing for LinkedIn logs too. Maybe I should just cut half of this episode out and put in LinkedIn logs. Maybe that's what I'll do, because I don't want to do this talk again. This comes from Dominic Patton over at Deadline. Hollywood jobs down nearly 20% this year, and not just because of the strikes, a study says. Now, comes from this study from Otis College of Art and Design's The Day After Tomorrow is what it's called. The jobs peaked in April when 142,652 workers were employed by the industry. And then in October, there were 24,799 fewer people, which is a shame to see. And apparently that's a 17% drop in California. Now, there was another study that was released thanks to the jobs report the labor report rather, like literally the next day. Yeah, the next morning was if you at the top of every month is the labor report for the previous month. This comes from Alex Weprin. And if you listen to the show Planet Money, they call it Jobs Day on NPR. They have a whole air horn thing, I think. I don't know. I haven't listened to it in a long time. It's mostly just comedy podcasts right now. I'm tired. I was working in the news, and I don't want to listen to the news when I've already been in the news. But now I'm out of the news. We'll see. Employment in Hollywood rebounds post-strikes, but still below 2022 peak. That comes from Hollywood Reporting. The BLS reported peak losses in the motion picture industry at around 50,000 people before it began to rebound following the resolution of the WGA strike in September. The information sector as a whole, which includes publishing, broadcasting, telecom, and computer infrastructure providers, among other fields, has declined by more than 104,000 from the BLS, which is the Bureau of Labor Statistics. We're seeing, people get back to work, and we're still. I mean, the rebound is not the word I would say for us. I'd say like a slow trickle back into work, even though, it seems like the economy is good, but it's still hard to find a job. Also on LinkedIn, I have a very big issue. People are very liberal with the word producer or editor or writer or whatever. Sometimes, I'll type in producer Atlanta area or producer remote, whatever, or writer, editor. Just like any version of words that for jobs I've done. And then I'll get like a job for like a factory in Wisconsin. And it'll be like, you're a producer. And then you'll click on it and be like, you produce lug nuts for tractors. And I'm like, no. It's insane. One side effect of the strikes and the ongoing pullback from the entertainment companies is likely to be fewer TV shows and movies being produced, which is what we're already seeing. When TV was being made, when John Landgraf for FX was talking about we're in peak TV, there was also peak jobs too, and now that we're seeing Max and Paramount and Apple and just Netflix and a bunch of other companies pull away from making a bunch of shows and movies because streaming is not as viable and lucrative as it once was. It is important to note that the jobs aren't going to be as plentiful. What is that noise? What is that noise? Oh my God, there's something playing, or I'm hearing something through. I don't know if you heard that. I don't know if that came through. But something was definitely coming through the iPad, but there's nothing playing. That is so strange. I turned the volume down for the iPad, but I don't know if you heard that. Anyway, the job losses. The industry lost roughly $1.4 billion in wages between April and September. I'm back at the Deadline article. And that's 0.5% of the industry's annual economic activity. California, that entire economy took about $6.5 billion in a hit. Nationally, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, over 45,000 jobs were lost from when the 12,000 strong scribes, when the writers hit the picket lines in May, and then the actors, 160,000, started in July and went to mid-October. The impact for this is going to go beyond the talent and the TV and the stuff that's coming on the televisions and the big screens, And you're going to see a lot of, I don't know. I wonder if this, I'll posit this, if this is going to affect tax credits and incentives. We have places like California and New York and Atlanta willing to go head over heels for these productions, but can they make this, will those states be able to make that money back? Will they want more people to come in, more productions to come in, and continue to essentially flood a state with money? Even though they're giving money away, they're still going to flood a state with money and bring in people willing to come to a small town. If you're shooting something in Clarksville and you have everybody living between Clarksville and Atlanta or Statesboro or whatever, I'm just naming places, then you're still going to bring in an economic boom. It's like Taylor Swift going on tour. If she goes to Denver, she's gonna impact Denver's economy. I mean, the same thing can happen for a big enough production. If the Queer Eye guys are in New Orleans for 2 months, well, then something's gonna happen in New Orleans. They're gonna bring along a crew of 50 to 100 people. They're gonna hire locally. They're gonna eat at your restaurants. Who wouldn't want Tan France sitting there eating a little pastry? Oh, this is good. Nah, I couldn't do the accent. In my head, I did it really, really well. It didn't happen out here. Good thing I didn't put on gay face for Jonathan. I'm reading a book right now called Yellow Face, and it's pretty funny. Just finished The Coworker, which, don't get me started. I was not a fan of that. They're both in audiobooks, but I'm spending 8 hours each with them, so it's like reading. Dreary-eyed in the morning. I'm going to put on this audiobook to have something to do for 20 minutes before I go to the gym. Listen, if you like what you heard here, head to the website, cpluscomedy.com, where you can see me talk to famous people. Interviews coming out, I don't know, maybe tomorrow at some point. Who cares? If you want to see a video version of the show, head to youtube.com/cpluscomedy. You want to subscribe to other podcasts as well as see the video versions. Listen to LinkedIn Logs, which is the job podcast, and Late Night Lately, which is the late night show. cpluscomedy.com, where you can see everything lumped together. Social media, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at cpluscomedy, me, at Chad Black White. That's it. That's the end of the show. All right, bye. That's just a much more elegant way to say goodbye, but I won't be doing that.